Overall, open world games are a dime a dozen in modern gaming, and the Nintendo Switch has some of the finest examples in the genre. From modern-day classics to reimaginings of classic Nintendo franchises, the Switch is host to a plentiful bounty of open-world adventures. Switch gamers have access to some of the best open worlds in gaming in, quite literally, the palm of their hand. The novelty of having access to console-scale worlds on a handheld device hasn't quite rubbed off yet. Here are the best open-world games on the Nintendo Switch. An open-world game that is unashamedly anime. Genshin Impact is an open-world action game with a gacha twist. Developed by MiHoYo, you bounce around between your typical RPG party member types as you batter apart and destroy a range of monsters and enemy types across the sprawling world or deep within its dungeons. Often compared to Breath of the Wild in scale and complexity, Genshin Impact has a wide array of features to dig into, as well as plenty of spectacle fighter action for those just looking for more combat time. To briefly mention the gacha, it's their main microtransaction moneymaker, but it does rotate out unique things like characters, banners, and other exotic collectibles. A hardcore open-world survival game with multiplayer for those with masochistic friends, Don't Starve is a great handheld choice. Oozing style and an almost Tim Burton-esque aesthetic. It's a simple goal, but there are a lot of layers and unique mechanics to dig into to keep things fresh. There's a colourful cast of characters, and each of them comes with their own unique abilities and benefits, with some drastically changing your playstyle altogether. The game continues to get support, tweaks and updates, and it's always a good time with friends. If you crave a challenging open-world survival game, Don't Starve should be on your list. A cozy farm management game, Stardew Valley was a huge hit when it launched. Featuring a large, explorable map, NPCs to meet and even marry, plus a dungeon filled with creatures, there's a lot to do outside of just rebuilding your grandfather's farm. Whether that's tending to the farm, creating your own business, wooing the township, or digging into some of the deeper mechanics of the game, Stardew Valley can certainly keep you busy. So, it garnered a lot of praise from critics, and it's a go-to relaxing game for many. If you like something slow-paced, then Stardew Valley comes with a hearty recommendation. The fourth and very popular installment in a series that's now sadly dead, Saints Row 4 took the titular Saints gang into the weirdest and best direction the series has ever seen. Trapped within a virtual world, the Saints have to escape, overthrow their alien overlords, and make it back to Earth. Not the simplest of jobs. This time around, though, you have superpowers that come in a range of flavors, from super speed, giant jumps, super strength, energy blasts, and much more. There's also a ton of odd and useful weapons, great set pieces, and of course, plenty of Keith David. The latest in a fan-favourite series, Pikmin 4, brilliantly recaptures the beauty, brutality, and charm of leading an army of incredibly tiny minions in a big hostile world. Olimar and crew are back, but this time things are different as everyone is much more prepared. Joining them on their adventures are a bunch of brand new Pikmin, including some elemental and even flying types. There's also an adorable alien canine companion that's both packhorse and battering ram, as well as a larger crew of characters that you can hot swap between on the fly. Whether you're a returning fan or a first-timer, Pikmin 4 has something for everyone. A rootin' to knottin' open-world western that took the world by storm when it first launched. Followed up by a fantastic sequel, Red Dead Redemption is a must-play for anyone looking for a great Wild West experience from Rockstar Games. Though the port does have a few bugbears, the overall experience is still enjoyable. You play as John Marston, an ex-bandit who's trying to go straight but has been tasked by the Pinkerton Agency with taking down his old crew. What follows is a harrowing tale of redemption, heartbreak, and a lot of gunfights and horseback riding across the early days of the United States. Highly recommended for a slow burner that you can lose hours into. So far, there has been no better blend of parkour and zombies than Dying Light. Stuck in a city that's besieged by the undead and other viral mutants, you play as Crane, an agent of the GRE who's been sent into the quarantine zone around Harran. Crane is undercover, and through the help from local survivors, he plans on finding Kadir Suleiman, a political figure turned rogue dictator who has important information on the viral epidemic. Complete tons of quests, craft powerful melee weapons, and outrun the incredibly terrifying volatiles that roam the streets when the sun goes down. Hollow Knight is brutally hard and can occasionally border on feeling unfair, but there is a reason it is perceived as one of the best indies ever made. The non-linear layout of Hollow Nest allows gamers to explore the numerous realms of the kingdom any way they wish to do so, with few barriers in their way. The combat is excellent, as is the story that unfolds as players explore Hollow Nest. It also includes all additional content for free, resulting in a 45 to 50 hour experience. Okami HD is one of the best Zelda-inspired games available on the Switch. It holds its own as an incredibly unique adventure that will likely never see a successor. An ode to Japanese folklore, Okami's story draws inspiration from ancient stories and myths in its narrative. It's also probably the best example of a game that blurs the line between games and art. Could Minecraft be considered the most expansive open-world game ever? It definitely is the most successful, having sold more than 200 million copies across all platforms. In reality, Minecraft is an amalgamation of a whole host of genres, but it definitely has a lot of open-world elements. The portable nature of the Switch version makes it a preferable way to play around in the sandbox world Minecraft offers. For those looking for a grand adventure, then check out Ylands from Bohemia Interactive. Surprising many with this title, Bohemia have certainly made something unique whilst taking a lot of good notes from other games. Build everything from huge castles and manors to armoured covered houseboats and whatever else your imagination can come up with. To keep you occupied, there are tons of dungeons to clear out, islands to discover, and new sights to see. It's very relaxing sailing around on your own. Plus, when you bring in a group, the anarchy and enjoyment only increases. Genuinely good from top to bottom and worth a recommendation. Ylands is an open world game that will sit well on your Nintendo Switch. A Lego game we haven't quite seen the likes of since Lego City Undercover gave you a wide open city to cause all sorts of brick-based chaos. You play as Chase McCain, a cop that's been sent undercover to hunt down the notorious Rex Fury. There's a crime wave hitting the city in Rex's wake, and it's up to Chase to calm things down and catch the bad guy in a classic crime caper adventure. Full of references, vehicles, collectibles, and comedy, Lego City Undercover is an entertaining classic that'll scratch that chaotic itch. Thalassophobics, prepare yourself as you'll be spending a lot of time in the big dark blue ocean. After your ship crash lands on an ocean world, you wake up in your escape pod to find nothing but water filled with huge alien fish in every direction you look. What follows is an extraordinarily good diving game where you'll be balancing your resources, building a base, and probing deeper and deeper into the depths. But the further down you go, the bigger the monsters get, so you better be prepared. Avast, you scurvy felines. There are doubloons out there with your name on it, and if you don't get your little pirate paws on them first, some other kitty might. The third installment in the long-running Cat Quest games from the Gentle Bros, Cat Quest 3 has you sailing the grand seas for adventure, treasure, and glory once more. Based in the Purabine, your little privateer has a long road ahead of them and plenty of pirates to beat. Featuring a new combat system, new worlds, dungeons, and co-op, Cat Quest 3 is the perfect penultimate pour him pirate adventure that you never knew you needed. Great for cat owners or generally anyone looking for some low-stakes, open-world wandering. Grab this game, build your crew, and set sail for adventure. A family-friendly installment of a classic creature hunting series. In Monster Hunter stories, instead of hunting and slicing apart creatures, you're raising them. You play as a rider, a group that raises and rides monster for a living, whilst also living in a small and isolated village in the mountains. But after a calamity known as the Black Blight begins to threaten the world, it's up to you and your team of monsters to save the world. Gameplay is a mix of turn-based and RPG mechanics across a massive and epic in scale open world. A huge time sink that's recommended for MH fans. MH Stories deserves a spot on your Switch. Unfortunately, Baldur's Gate 3 is a little chunky to run on the Switch, but you can still get your D&D fix with Divinity Original Sin 2, made by Larian Studios, the same team behind BG3, and is just as great. Explore the vast and multi-layered world of Rivellon, gather a party of your choosing, and follow a winding story that could potentially end with you becoming a god. Or worse. Every adventure is unique, plus you can bring in your friends in local and online multiplayer, a fantastic D&D experience for those on a budget. Divinity Original Sin 2 is highly recommended for turn-based fantasy fans. A slightly janky, yet interesting and unique indie adventure game about how persistent life can be. Seed of Life tasks you with reviving a dying planet. You play as Cora, the last survivor on Lumia. The world is rotting, but it's up to you to rekindle the sun, banish the darkness, and revive the land. The environment is filled with toxic plants and deadly monsters, but in this puzzle-heavy action-adventure game, you're the only one that can save the day. Some of the vistas are absolutely gorgeous, and despite it being a little rough around the edges, there's plenty of charm to keep you pushing through to the end. An absolutely gorgeous open-world RPG from top to bottom, Sea of Stars from Sabotage Studio, made some huge waves when it landed, an instant classic that follows the story of two magic-wielding children of Solstice that have to stop the evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer. Form your party and take part in unique combat that requires acting in sync with certain attacks for big damage numbers. All the fights take place in the real world, so there's no screen transitions, and it works fantastically well to immerse you in the setting. An award-winning game that deserves a place on your Switch, Sea of Stars, is a must-play. A game that's oozing with absurd and bonkers British humour. Thank Goodness You're Here from Cole's Supper is a charming open-world adventure indie game that's absolutely stellar from top to bottom. You play as a travelling salesman that's taking in the strange sights of a small town. Interact with the locals, help them in their activities, and get ready for abstract and out-there jokes that will leave you on the floor in hysterics. Farnsworth is a very strange town, and there's always something weird just waiting right around the corner. It's a must-play Switch game for those with a silly sense of humour, and it can't come more recommended. Play this if you can, or at least watch a gorgeous tropical open-world game from Oaseb. Tchia is reminiscent of Breath of the Wild through a colourful Caribbean filter. Set sail around the beautiful archipelagos and discover magical islands, explore new locales and meet strange new people and creatures whilst customizing Tchia however you like, or just use your enchanted ukulele to summon items or just jam out. There's special gifts that let you take control of animals and objects to explore, look for treasure or complete quests. Plus, there are just tons of activities to do around these pleasant little spots. Highly recommended if you're looking for a low-stakes open-world game to mess around in for hours. Even though it launched in 2017, Downward from Caracal Games has returned once again with a brand new enhanced edition that's worth checking out. For those familiar, Downward is a first-person open-world parkour game set on a post-apocalyptic Earth. The environment has been rendered down into ruins, and the game tasks you with exploring these wrecks to save what's left of humanity. There are plenty of puzzles and parkour involved, deadly monsters and bosses, as well as stat upgrades to improve your ability to clamber across objects, like an adrenaline-fueled monkey. Things haven't been going well for Seiji Maruyama in Fading Afternoon from Yo-Yo. An ex-Yakuza and freshly released from prison, Seiji has to figure out how he's going to fit back into society. Will he fall back on old habits or forge a new path? It's all up to you. There are multiple endings, a wide-open Japanese city filled with the classic tropes, tons of minigames and some fun beat-em-up gameplay sections to keep things exciting. Plus, don't let its cutesy art style fool you. There are a lot of strong, dark themes dealt with in the story. If you loved the Sega Yakuza games, then you'll enjoy Fading Afternoon. An absolutely adorable open-world game that will look right at home on your Nintendo Switch. Moonstone Island from Studio Supersoft is a surprisingly in-depth creature collecting and life sim game set against a backdrop of an absolutely gigantic world. There are over 100 islands to explore, and on those strange locales are odd creatures and spirits that you'll need to collect and tame through a unique deck-building combat system. So meet and marry NPCs, befriend over 70 spirits, and throw away your free time in the Infini Dungeon. Highly recommended and very well received, Moonstone Island is a must-play. Build and grow your own town in Pixelshire from Kappa Bits. A quaint and cozy open-world RPG meets sim game, Pixelshire lets your imagination go wild on a large scale as you craft, build, and create your town how you like. Master a trade, meet new neighbors, or go out and explore the wilderness of Arcadia to bring home better materials for your growing community. NPCs bring new skills to learn, so you're encouraged to play nice and meet the needs of your new tenants, and there's a lot of personalization that you can put into each home. If you like something that lets you tinker with your very own town, then pick up Pixelshire. An absolutely massive open land of Ori awaits in Outwhai from Ninte.studio. The game sells itself as an immersive RPG, and it's not wrong, as it's very easy to lose yourself in the environment and atmosphere as you're bumbling around in a cave or taking long, confident strides across the hills, dales, and fields of Ori. Forge your own path, spec your character how you want, and take on every hostile creature out there in any way you like, whether that's fist-to-face in combat or being sneaky and using hazards in the environment to your benefit. There are plenty of survivor stats to manage and lots of towns, cities, and tombs to ransack, explore, and strip for treasure. Trickier than you would think and more enjoyable than you would expect, Outward comes with a hearty recommendation. If you're a fan of the in-depth off-roading experience of the Mudrunner and SnowRunner franchise from Saber Interactive, then you're going to feel right at home here. Expeditions is a slightly slimmed down but more action-oriented version of past games, and if you like driving cars up big hills, then it's worth adding to your library. The task this time around is to use a series of research vehicles to explore areas like a ruined Arizona or Carpathian Mountains as you perform surveys, gather research materials, and perform other unique science tasks with high-tech tools. There are a ton of cars, as usual, but the focus this time around is less haulage and more off-roading with fancy gadgets. If you wanted more Mudrunner with less trucking, then this is the one worth checking out. A low-stakes open-world game from a small group of indie devs, Europa carries a lot of Breath of the Wild energy for all the right reasons. You play as Z, an android that's stuck on the terraformed paradise on Europa, as he tries to explore his new surroundings. In the heart of a fallen civilization, Z will have secrets to uncover, puzzles to solve, and foes to fight as he learns the story of the last human being left alive on the planet. To help him get around, Z can glide and soar short distances through the air, and there's a lot of emphasis on momentum and using physics to get around or figure out tricky brain teasers. If you're in the market for something that's very pretty, but has some relaxing low stakes, then check out Europa. A streamlined and super simple top-down open-world adventure game from Okami. Master Key is an adorable indie game that brings with it some nostalgic Super Nintendo-era Zelda energy mixed with an adorable fox protagonist in the same vein as Tunic. And it all works exceedingly well. It's adorable and thoroughly enjoyable in its simplicity, and since none of the story is gated and the land is open from the start, it's up to you to figure out how it all pieces together as you forge your own tale. There's a ton of enemy variety, lots of unique weapons to discover or buy, and secrets and dungeons to discover, all wrapped up in 20 hours of gameplay that you'll struggle to stop playing. It's low-peds, highly recommended, and chock full of things to do, so check out Master Key. From the minds behind 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, comes Unicorn Overlord, a tactical RPG in a brilliantly drawn fantasy art style. Embark on an adventure to regain your royal reign with a cast of unique characters that you'll need to ally yourself with in order to secure your kingdom. There's a massive, vibrant land to explore, and you'll need to use the terrain of this world to your advantage as you position your troops. There's over 60 unique troops, ranging from normal lads in armor to elves, angels, and even huge beasts that will tear apart enemy formations. Master diplomacy, plan your rise to power, and leave none standing in your wake as you make your way to the top. An unexpected port of a game that took the gaming community by storm with its uniqueness, Kingdom Come Deliverance has finally made the jump to the Nintendo Switch. Avenge your parents' death as Henry, the son of a blacksmith and survivor of an attack on his village that saw all his friends and family slaughtered. Join the resistance against the invasion as you explore and thrive on a massive map set in medieval Europe. Each story beat can be solved in your own way, and combat is unique and tricky to master, but satisfying once you do. Plus, there are plenty of perks, skills, and upgrades for your gear to unlock as Henry works his way up the proverbial medieval ladder of life. Travel through the open blue skies to floating islands filled with quirky characters and brain-teasing puzzles in Passing by a Tailwind journey from Studio Windsock. You play as Curly, a red hood-wearing woman and aspiring balloonist who delivers the mail. One day, a mysterious letter comes in, and what follows is an adventure into the unknown. Manage the intricacies of your airship as you travel between islands, manage and collect resources to keep your boat afloat, and solve puzzles as you progress through this wholesome world that's full of these airborne archipelagos. A hand-illustrated medieval mystery game from Obsidian Entertainment, Pentiment dives right into the accurate odd art of that old period in history. In a time of religious and political upheaval, you follow the steps of Andreas Miller, an artist who becomes immersed in murder, intrigue, and scandal. Set in the Bavarian Alps, Pentiment is absolutely gorgeous, and its animation has this great comic strip aesthetic to it that you can easily become immersed in. The tale constantly twists and turns. Plus, there are multiple ways events can play out, so it's always worth stepping back into the shoddy shoes of Andreas to see how different the story can get. A game that set the standard for the modern open-world experience with its scope and ambition, the appearance of Skyrim on Switch was a welcome surprise when it popped up in the reveal clip for the console back in October 2016. If you're after seamless, polished perfection, you'll find Zelda further down this video. If you're after an epic adventure filled with guts, glory, and not a small amount of jank, this remains one of the very best examples out there. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a genuine masterpiece, and the highlight of Monolith Soft's superb series thus far. There's an emotionally charged and surprisingly edgy epic to get stuck into here, a sprawling and hugely engaging narrative populated by a cast of unforgettable characters that's backed up by some of the very best combat we've had the pleasure of getting to grips with in this genre to date. All 100 hours into this one, we're as captivated with its open world now as we were when we first booted it up, and it has more than delivered every bit of the adventure, emotion, and action that its key art promised it might. Ionios awaits. It's time to seize the future. It's impossible to talk about everything that makes The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom so incredible, and making many of those discoveries yourselves is part of the magic. It's also impossible to overstate just how much there is to do in Hyrule this time around. Much like its predecessor, this is your playground for the next however many years to come, with a little sprinkling of that older Zelda fairy dust mixed into Breath of the Wild's formula. It's a glorious, triumphant sequel to one of the best video games of all time, absolute unfiltered bliss to lose yourself in for hundreds of hours. Battling Skyrim for the title of Most Painfully Obvious Inclusion. If you own a Switch and it's not simply an Animal Crossing portal, you owe it to yourself to get Breath of the Wild. Its version of Hyrule is one of the most cohesive, polished, and watertight open worlds on any platform, and we've lost literal real-life days exploring its hills and dales, peaks and valleys, nooks and crannies. It's one of the best games Nintendo has ever made. Of course it's here. And once you've finished with this one, you can always return to the same world to explore the sky and underground too. Switch owners have a couple of options when it comes to Assassin's Creed games, but there's a clear correct answer if someone asks you which they should play. Assassin's Creed The Rebel Collection contains both Black Flag plus the series spin-off interquel Assassin's Creed Rogue, a feast for the eyes and ears. Sailing around the high seas as Edward Kenway feels not dissimilar to the voyages of a young, shell-shaped sailor we enjoyed first back on GameCube, and the beauty of the Caribbean waves and pirate settlements is displayed in fine portable form in this excellent port of one of the series' high points. This is one of the most impressive ports on Switch. The fact that CD Projekt Red's action RPG runs on Nintendo's console at all is a minor miracle, but the experience the studio served up in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt holds up incredibly well thanks to the efforts of Saber Interactive. Geralt of Rivia's epic adventure through an enormous open world is a pleasure to play on a handheld, and cross-saves with the PC version of the game is the icing on a tasty little cake. An absolutely gorgeous game from the talented team that brought us ABZD, The Pathless from Giant Squid is a mystical adventure into the wilds. Playing as a master archer, your goal is take down the darkness that's blighted the land. With just a bow and your trained eagle companion to aid you, it's a bold and big adventure just waiting to burst forth onto your screen. Overall, The Pathless is an enjoyable and genuinely beautiful experience at times as you're wandering around its vast open map with big Breath of the Wild energy. It treads similar yet new ground to provide an experience that's thrilling and always has something new just around the corner. A recommended pick if you're looking for something familiar yet new. A romantic game from the game bakers that follows two lovers lost on a planet in far-flung space, Haven is an anime-inspired survival game that will hit you right in the heart. A brilliant and vibrant action RPG, Haven is a story-rich experience that's worth checking out. You play as Yu and Kay, who left behind everything to start fresh in a far-off world. However, the planet is filled with monsters, but they're not too difficult to deal with when the pair work together. Your ship needs to be fixed, your home needs to be made more cozy, and there are recipes to learn to spice up your evenings. It's a heartwarming tale that will hook you right from the start, and it went down well with a lot of critics.